Hello, and thank you for attending our online version of the 2019-2020 Volunteer Update. This is Ashley Hall talking, 4-H Assistant Professor. You're going to be hearing from Beth Wangian, our Volunteer Development Coordinator, and Kim Baker, our 4-H Program Coordinator. Christy Boyd has been diligently recording, writing down frequently asked questions from our in-person live versions of this presentation. So you should be able to find a document recording those below the same website that you found this. So check that out if you have questions, or of course you can email us. Before we get started, we want to say thank you. It's the 4-H volunteers that make 4-H possible, and the dedication that you have to the community and to the youth is really immeasurable, although we do have a couple of ways to measure it, and we're going to show you those in a little bit. So just thank you so much. Thank you for attending this update. Thank you for dedicating your time. Thank you for everything. All right, we're going to do a few introductions, and then we're going to jump right into content. So again, Ashley Hall, I'm the 4-H faculty member. I started August 2019. A little bit about me. My educational background is in social work. I have a master's degree in social work, where I focused primarily on nonprofit management. And I'm working on and almost completed my PhD in public policy and leadership, again with a nonprofit management emphasis. I was a 4-H volunteer in Nevada, my home state, and a lot of my energy was focused around STEM education for youth. And it was a very rewarding experience that actually led me into this extension position. I really enjoy using data to inform programming, to help tell the story about what we do and how we do it and how well it works. It's a big part of my focus here in Snohomish County. I'm also very interested in volunteer engagement and development, as well as building and helping to reinforce the 4-H to university pipeline, meaning getting those 4-H youth into the university system, into higher education if that's an interest of theirs. So those are kind of my areas of study and expertise. A little something personal about me. I'm a mother of 2 children, a 16-year-old teenage boy and a 6-year-old girl. I'm a big, huge fan of robotics and shooting sports. Those were the areas that I really had a lot of energy put into in 4-H. And I have never ridden a horse, which has been a very fun experience moving to a county where the equine program is so large. I'm learning so much and really enjoying learning from our amazing volunteers.
Hi, for those of you that I've not had the opportunity to meet, I'm Kim Baker, the 4-H Program Coordinator. I'm relatively new to this position since July of 2019, and if you knew Phoebe, it's her position that I took on after she retired. A little about me: I have 5 daughters who all grew up in Snohomish County in the horse program, and for the past 20 years I was heavily involved as a volunteer, as a horse club leader, the hippology coach, and the equine science chair, all of which I absolutely loved. 2 of my main responsibilities now are youth development, education, and volunteer support, and I feel very fortunate to have a job that serves a community of individuals that I feel are the salt of the earth. Thank you all so much for all that you do, because you are truly making a difference.
And this is Beth. Here's a picture of me in the dark with my bicycle, and here's what I look like in the daylight. So if I haven't met you before, hello, welcome to our update. We all have certain terms that we use to identify ourselves, and here are some of mine. So I picked all positive, happy ones that I really love and enjoy doing. Some highlights recently are, as an auntie, I get to go to a lot of gymnastics events. I have an amazing gymnast niece, and I also have some things in my past that might interest you. I tried to pick things you might not know. If you've known me for a while, you might not know. I was in the Peace Corps. I did AmeriCorps. I've been a camp director. I learned a lot of obscure languages. I know you're going to want to know what they are. It's true. I studied Latin, and then I studied abroad in Thailand when I was in college, and I did the Peace Corps in Hungary. So I like to say I know more languages and can communicate with fewer people than anyone else I know. I did study environmental science at the graduate level, and I've been a challenge course director. So all those things, those are me. These are a couple of websites that we're going to refer to during our presentation. That top one is our county website. If you're used to accessing it with snohomish.wsu.edu, you can still use that. The second one is our state website, and if you're used to getting there with 4h.wsu.edu, you can get there that way too. So we will show you various locations that will be useful to you on both those sites. So first of all, this is our county website, and you can identify it by that white strip right there. And the state website has a black strip going down the side with all those different topics in it. So one thing I'm going to cover here is state policy changes, both from last year and this year, because we didn't do an update last year. Also going to give you a couple reminders about child protection, social media, and internet, some financial updates, and the latest, greatest news on volunteer education. So first, some state policy updates. Now, this is a little fill in the blank, and here are all the possible answers. Leadership, vapor, hearing, preservation, and younger. So let's see how you do. First question, prohibited items at 4-H events where youth are present include electronic cigarettes, some kind of products, and alcohol. If you said vapor, you win. That's the right answer. Vapor products are prohibited. When teams cannot be filled with same age level members, some other kind of members may compete with an older age group. What do you think it is? If you think it's younger, ding, 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 you got it right. Younger members may compete with an older age group. However, the reverse is not true. Older members may not compete with the younger age group. That's new state policy. Next one, the 4-H club charter must be renewed whenever a leadership change occurs. This means club leader. So anytime you have a new club leader, just go through that charter checklist again with your youth leadership and make sure everybody knows what a good 4-H club looks like. Shooting sports members and leaders must wear appropriate hearing protection. That was an easy one, right? And volunteers who wish to teach food preservation must complete the Certified Washington State Food Preservation Training called Preserve the Taste of Summer. It's online, available anytime you want it, and it's pretty low cost, but anyone who needs help with that should make sure to contact us. We're happy to help out. Anyone teaching any kind of food preservation in 4-H has to have completed that course. All right, let's do some fill in the numbers. You know those non-discrimination statements we have to put on all of our flyers, brochures, those sorts of things? Well, there actually is a minimum size to those. They can't be itsy bitsy microscopic. They got to be at least an 8-point font. That's right. And a 4-H club, by definition, is a group of at least 5 youth from 3 families who meet regularly with a minimum of how many adult volunteers? This is not new in our county, but it's new that now the state has adopted this as policy. Got to have at least 2 adult volunteers on your roll in order to be a legitimate club. The age requirement for 4-H volunteers has also changed again, so get ready here. The minimum age is 18. Now you might be saying, wait, I thought it was 18. Well, it was, and then it was 19, and now it's 18 again. So the hitch is that there's no changing places. So if somebody decides when they are 18 on October 1st that they're going to be a volunteer this year, they can't decide in November that they want to switch back to being a youth member. They have to stick with their original decision. Chaperones. Now let's just review the definition of a chaperone in 4-H language is someone who is supervising youth at an overnight activity. So the expected adult to youth ratio is 1:8. That's for supervising youth at an overnight activity. And what about reporting suspected or observed abuse or neglect? Well, there is a time limit during which you're expected to report those sorts of things, and it is 48 hours. So make sure you report that at least to us here at the 4-H office. And if you want to report it to CPS or other legal authorities, you are also free and encouraged to do that, but also please tell us at the 4-H office. All right, here's a little fill in the blank. Chaperones. You may recall some activity around this policy the last time in which it was stated that adults could not share the same sleeping quarters with youth. This turned out to be a little confusing because we have so many different venues where kids and adults spend the night when they are on overnight events. So they've refined the policy considerably. And here we have the improvements. Youth are chaperoned by same gender chaperones. Youth and adults are not to stay in the same sleeping quarters unless it is a cabin with multiple youth or a large capacity arrangement such as a gymnasium or large room setting. Each specific arrangement should be reviewed by 4-H staff prior to the event, and the state 4-H office staff must be notified of any arrangements where adults will be sharing sleeping quarters with youth. That would be our office here at the county level notifying the state office of what's happening. And finally, a little child protection reminder, which is really more like an adult protection reminder. We want to make sure all of our volunteers and as staff, we too are protecting ourselves from any even possible allegations or suggestions of anything inappropriate going on. And the #1 way to do that is to make sure that we are never alone, one adult with one youth, unless it's your own child, grandchild, that sort of thing. So if you need to talk to a youth privately, or if they need to talk to you privately, like maybe they have something slightly embarrassing to say, or maybe it's a disciplinary situation, you can still have those private conversations. Just make sure that you are clearly visible to other people, so other people will be able to say that nothing inappropriate was happening. You might, if it's a disciplinary situation, even want to ask someone else to watch you while you go over to the corner to address a situation with the youth. Social media and internet. All right, we are all over the World Wide Web. So let's remember that anytime 4-H has a presence on the internet, it's for 3 purposes. It's for education, information, and communication. We also want to make sure that we always have some kind of alternative, because let's say your club is doing all of their communicating on Facebook. It's very likely that you could have a family that at some point says, you know what, we're not going to do Facebook anymore, or we're not on Facebook and we don't want to be on Facebook, and we can't require anyone to join a particular social media site. So just have an alternative. Maybe that means sending out emails in addition to whatever information you post online. Make sure any groups that you have are closed so that only members of your group can see the information that's on those sites. And if you ever have photos of youth on your sites, they've got to have media releases in place. This is part of their 4-H online enrollment. And the club leaders and program leaders have access to this information through 4-H online. If you're a club leader or program leader and you don't know how to find this, please contact Christy. We are eager to help you here. And Christy, our 4-H admin person, she can give you all the guidelines and instructions of where that information lives. Our no 1-to-1 ratio guideline also exists when it comes to social media. So this is an area where we also need to protect ourselves from any suspicion or allegation of inappropriate behavior. So try not to communicate alone with just one youth. Now, you might not be able to avoid it all the time. Some youth might send you a private message. But if you can include another adult when you write back to them, or suggest that you meet at the meeting or after the meeting, or some other slightly more public venue, that will help to keep us all safe. And financial updates. Oh, so many things. I'm going to tell you about a new financial management training, about your tax filing for your club or program, corporate matching and partnerships, fundraising, how to spend money, and mobile banking, budgeting, signatures, and audits, all those things. But if we're going to talk about money, we should talk about how our volunteer appreciation relates to money too, because while I would definitely say that all of your efforts and contributions are priceless, there is actually a dollar amount that somebody has bothered to work up for our volunteer hours. And it's the publicsector.org. They have decided that volunteers from Washington State give at the rate of $31.72 per hour, which is, by the way, significantly higher than the national number of around $24 an hour. So woohoo, woohoo for Washington volunteers. Now, Ashley has been crunching some numbers, and based on the number of volunteer hours that have been reported in the last 4-H year, right now we're sitting right around $930,000 worth of volunteer time. We would love to get to that $1 million mark, so that's our new goal. If you need any help with reporting your volunteer hours, please contact me, Beth. I want to help you out. Thank you for that. So this new required financial management training is required for club leaders and program leaders and also any treasurers. Anyone can watch this training, and we would encourage you to do so. It's only 30 minutes. It's required every year. So if you're a club leader, you might consider watching it with your treasurer so you can both refresh and learn about it at the same time. It's online at a website called campus.extension.org. I'll show you what that looks like and how to get there. Any questions, please ask us. We want to make sure everyone is up to date and that we all are in the good graces of the IRS. Speaking of the IRS, taxes. Hey, great news. You don't have to file for taxes for your club or program. So those 990Ns that we file for all of our groups that have income under $50,000, they're already done. Christy did them. So if you feel like you need some kind of documentation for that, don't hesitate to give Christy a call. She'd be happy to give you the receipts for that. But they are done, so please don't do them again. We don't want to confuse the IRS. Corporate matching. Hey, did you know that we have a lot of employers in our county that give very generously, and a lot of our volunteers work for those companies. So we get benefits from Boeing, from Microsoft, also Google, T-Mobile, Starbucks. If you or any other volunteers you know work for any of those companies, please, please encourage them, if they're not already, to be reporting their volunteer time and or donations, financial donations to their employers so that our whole program can benefit. Before anyone does that, though, they should definitely contact me so I can make sure they're clicking on all the right EINs when that's their tax identifying number for our program when they report their hours to their employer. We do have a list of employers that have a history. It's a very long list, and I'm going to show you where to find it here. That these are employers that have a history of matching volunteer time and or donations. So it's on our website. On the volunteer page, there is a section called Matched Funds, and there's a hot link there to a very, very, very long list of employers that do match either time or money or both. It's not a complete list by any means, so just because you don't see your employer on that list doesn't mean that they don't match. So it's worth it to go to your HR department and ask them just to be sure. We also have some corporate fundraising that happens every year. This is our 3rd year of having a partnership with Joanne Fabrics, and that's a nationwide partnership. So they have a Clovers for Kids campaign, and this year it's going to be in March and April. Last year, we got just over $3,000 from that campaign, and Ashley's going to tell you what we're thinking about doing with that money.
Yeah, with Joanne Fabrics, we're definitely focusing on making sure those dollars go directly to support youth and youth programming. In some of it could be used for curriculum, things like that to support the club environment and things like that. Tractor Supply is specifically for youth leadership. So we have some really great ideas about how to use those funds to promote, leadership opportunities for youth, whether it be events or summits, conferences, sending youth out to events and opportunities that give them those leadership experiences and skills. So that's definitely where we're focusing our energies.
There is a Paper Clover campaign coming up with Tractor Supply Company, April and May. So if your club might be interested in doing some kind of event at one of our local Tractor Supplies or at Joann's in March and April to raise awareness of 4-H and put ourselves out there to show them what 4-H is all about, please do contact the managers at those businesses and get in there and let's show people the greatness that we have. Fundraising, there are other ways to fundraise too, and many of your clubs and programs have done a variety of fundraisers, which is fantastic. We want kids to learn how to advocate for themselves, and state policy says that we need to know what fundraisers are going on in our county. So we want to be able to say when someone calls and says, hey, there's a 4-H'er here at my business and they're asking for a donation for their XYZ fundraiser. Is this legitimate? We want to be able to say, oh yeah, we know all about it. Here, we have their fundraising notice form. We also want to use this information that we collect for data reporting to be able to tell others what fundraisers work well, which ones haven't worked well in the past, what tips other clubs have for you doing your fundraiser. So please do submit the fundraising notice before the event and the fundraising report after the event. Here's where you can find those forms. They're on our resources page, right there at the bottom of the club and program finances section. And they're pretty short. They're just a little one-pager each. Your treasurer can fill this out and send it in to us so we can crunch some numbers and give people some good advice. Thank you for doing that. Oh, some more fill in the blanks. All right, multiple choice. Mobile something is not allowed in 4-H. What could it be? If you said banking, ding, 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 you got it right. Mobile banking. No mobile banking, please. New state policy. Now, if you need to use a Square device to take payments at some kind of fundraiser or a show that you're doing, you can do that, but please make sure that you are using a program-owned device. You can check out tablets, laptops, that sort of thing from our office if you need them, or you can use ones that are owned by your own club or program, but just no personal devices. More banking updates. You know that each program should develop a plan for the year in the fall. And once they have their plan, then they can make a budget. You can find budgeting examples in the CTH. What does the CTH stand for? If you said Club Treasurer's Handbook, you got it right. Ding, ding. And that's on our resources page under that Club and Program Finances section. As you also know, all checks written on 4-H bank accounts must have 2 signatures. That doesn't mean the bank requires 2 signatures. It's just 4-H that requires 2 signatures. The first signature, of course, is someone who's a signer on that account that is registered with the bank. The second signature could be, could it be the payee? Could it be someone related to the payee? Could it be an alpaca? Could it be the youth treasurer or another 4-H member? Could it be an adult who is not a certified volunteer? There's truly only one correct answer here. So I hope you're thinking it could be the youth treasurer or another 4-H member. Absolutely. Those other ones are strict no-nos. No, the payee on the check cannot also sign the check. Nobody related to that payee. Probably no alpacas. And no adults who aren't certified volunteers should have anything to do with 4-H money or the financial accounts, aside from just looking at them. Annual financial reports are due from each club and program by December 1st. Why do we have this deadline? Well, we always like to tell you why. What could it be? Planning for our annual holiday auditing parties? Because state policy requires that we audit 10% of all our accounts? Because the state office is going to audit us, maybe? Because if we don't have annual financial reports, WSU cannot confer nonprofit status on your club or program. All right, there are actually several right answers here. So I'm going to tell you. It's all 3 of those. I mean, yeah, okay, we like to plan ahead for our holiday auditing parties too, but really, we are required to audit 10% of all our accounts. So if we don't even have the annual financial statements yet, that gets a little tricky. And the state office really is auditing also 10% of the counties in the state, which could be us. And it's also true that WSU can't confirm our nonprofit status and confer it onto us unless we have that documentation. So volunteer training updates. So we have some brand new things under volunteer training, and not to be confused with this one, which is also called an update. There is a new platform for our introductory level online trainings, and it's at campus.extension.org. And I'm going to show you what that looks like here. When you get there, you'll see this. You'll click on 4-H and Youth, and you'll get this drop-down menu of states, and then you'll click on Washington. And from there, it'll give you this page. So we have our 2 basic trainings that are required for all people who want to become certified volunteers. Those are here on this page. If you haven't done them, you might not be a 4-H volunteer. Check with me. So there's the first one, Put the Child First. That is the same training that was previously available on a different platform. And we have our 4-H volunteer orientation modules. These are replacing the 4 e-learning modules. They are not the same. So if you're curious to see what's in them, feel free to look. But these 2 things are required for all new volunteers who are just becoming certified. Now there's that bit in the middle there, which is the training I referred to earlier. That's that Washington State 4-H financial management training, that 30-minute piece. By the way, the new volunteer orientation modules are a little shorter than the old ones. It should only take about 40 minutes to get through those. And there are certificates at the end of all of these for you to submit. This is the state 4-H webpage. We can tell by that black ribbon on the side. And it's got a couple of nifty things that you might want to know about. The 4-H Policy and Procedures Handbook is right there. I probably look at it at least 3 times a week, so it might come in handy for you once in a while too. And then there's this new section down here for clubs that has a whole brand new page on club financial information. So this is going to tie back to something that we already talked about here. I'm going to make that a little bigger so you can see what it actually looks like. Club financial information. And here's what the page has on it. It has a financial management checklist, which is handy for new clubs, but also for clubs to know what financial documents they have to submit every year. Below that, you can find the audit report and how to audit. You can find the property inventory form. At the bottom, you can see all the 3 ways, well, it appears on the top of this slide, 3 different ways to submit your annual financial summary. And then there are 2 videos. The one on the right is the same 4-H financial management training that I just showed you at campus.extension.org. So this is another way to get to that training without creating a login for anything. However, there's no report that gets zapped over to us to tell us that you've done it. So there's a link right below it called Financial Management Training Attest. That's a form that you would need to sign if you watch the video here to say, yep, I really watched that video. By the time you see this video, this volunteer update, it's possible that that financial management training piece might have disappeared from this site, but currently, as of now, it is still there. Now that other video on the left, the one called Obtaining Your Club's EIN Tutorial, you won't have any use for that unless you're a brand new club or a club that never previously had an EIN, and we will let you know that it's time to watch that video and apply for your EIN. But otherwise, you just don't even need to worry about it at all. This is our volunteer training system in Snohomish County called Evolve. You may have heard of it. And this bubble sheet, I'll show you where to find this, is part of that. And I just wanted to refresh you that these are the different classes that are required for folks serving in various roles. In that lower right-hand corner, you can see Activity Leader. This is the entry level for all of our volunteers. Those trainings that are listed in there are just the online trainings that we just talked about. So anyone who is going to be in another role, like a project leader or a club leader, would need to take some additional classes, which currently are in-person classes. And if you're on our volunteers page, here's where you can find that bubble sheet. It's on page 3 of the Evolve document, right here at that button. And if you want to sign up for some classes, prior to that, if you are thinking you haven't done any trainings and maybe you still need to apply to be a volunteer, you can find the application there. And just above that is our, is a link, volunteer education, that will take you to whatever signups are currently available for volunteer classes. All right, we're getting on the home stretch now. Frequently asked questions. How often are the volunteer trainings required? Well, there's that financial management piece, that 30-minute piece, that's required annually for club leaders, program leaders, and treasurers. But you're welcome to take them as often as you like. Sometimes volunteers will tell me that they feel like a training should be required every 3 years or 5 years or whatever they're thinking. And you are more than welcome to take them as many times as you wish. Also, sometimes trainings are taught by a new instructor. For example, Kim and Ashley are now teaching classes that were previously taught by Phoebe and Jana. So they're going to have different information and a different take on things. So even if you've taken it previously, you might want to check it out and see what they have to say, but it's not required. What if the trainings always seem to be at a time when I can't make it? You can invite us. Invite us to come to your local fire station, library, church, living room, whatever you've got, and get some friends together, and we will bring a training to you. Don't hesitate. We may also invite other people, if the space is available, to come and take that class with you. And what if you need a training that isn't offered? You know, we really want to help meet your needs as a 4-H volunteer. So if there's something you wish you knew more about, let us know. If we don't have the expertise to offer that training, our goal is to bring in experts who can address those needs and provide that training. For example, a few years ago, somebody said, gee, I really wish we had some training on suicide prevention. So we found a training through our local health district, and they've provided that training for us at least 3 times, and we'll keep offering it a couple of times a year because it's a valuable one. So if you want a training we don't have, just ask. And we have a brand new page I wanted to make you aware of. This is also on our volunteers page, called Continuing Education Opportunities. So anytime we find something that's not a 4-H class that we think you might be interested in, we will post it here. Currently, there is a free training on this site that you can get continuing education credits for. So if that would be valuable to you, you might want to take a peek.
Well, hey, my turn.
And now it's Kim's turn. Go, Kim.
I'm going to talk about some FAIR requirements and the county level education activity, because many of the questions we receive pertain to that requirement. But first, I would just like to take a few minutes to say thank you, because we know that youth involved in 4-H are about 4 times more likely to give back to their communities. And where do they learn this? One of those places is from you, from watching you volunteer in the community and watching you give back into their lives. And so it makes a big impact, it makes a big difference, and I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you for doing that. All right, so FAIR requirements. FAIR is often the culmination of a member's 4-H project year, but not all youth desire to participate at FAIR, right? And some are unable to do so for varying circumstances. But one of the things, if they're going to, is to be sure they're enrolled in 4-H online by March 31st. They need to attend a county level educational activity, which we'll talk about in a minute. And they need to fulfill all club and project requirements. So some of these requirements are uniform, the enrollment online, but some are for safety or practical reasons. For example, to exhibit a horse in a jumping class, the member must have participated in a county level event earlier in the year to demonstrate that they understand the procedures and they can safely maneuver through the course. Some requirements are there to meet specific standards. For example, a horse certificate or a dairy certificate are required by June 1st. There's a reason for this. It's because premiums are paid at FAIR, and to receive a premium, the animal must have been in the exhibitor's care and management for a specific period of time to receive a cash award. The county level educational activity, the purpose for that was to provide a practical hands-on education for all youth using an experiential education model. The reason we like to use experiential education models with hands-on learning is because our youth it's so effective in catching and holding the interest of our youth and in helping them to retain the information that they're learning. It's also to provide an opportunity for youth to develop cross-club and county-wide relationships and expanding their horizons, so to speak. And it also provides support for club and project leaders because some club and project leaders may have agreed to become a leader just so that youth could participate, but they're not necessarily experts in the field. So having a county level educational activity provides a tool that those youth would need to be successful with their project. And incidentally, we came across another benefit, was actually a benefit to our volunteers, because a lot of the time we spend some quality time preparing an activity and then maybe not very many youth show up to our event. Now that we've got this requirement for a county level activity, a lot higher attendance rates are recognized, and that is, I'm sure that it's appreciated by volunteers who put so much time and effort into facilitating these things. So for a county level activity to qualify, there are some criteria. So obviously it needs to be project related, and it needs to be approved by the program leader. It needs to be open to all of the project members in that project and announced in a timely manner so they can make arrangements to be involved. It should have some type of a hands-on activity within it, which is for that experiential education model, and it should involve some youth choice. The way that we meet those requirements are simply to attend a county level activity or to attend an activity outside of 4-H. For example, we just had a country living expo, and sometimes a project leader may say that, hey, if you attend a certain class at an activity outside of 4-H, then we will count that as qualifying to meet this educational activity requirement. So check with your program leaders to see if something that you're attending might qualify. And then did you know that a 4-H club can host an educational activity for the county? So if you're already doing something that's pretty cool, like you're having a veterinarian come out to speak on something, or you're having an expert in some field come to give a talk to your club, you can invite other clubs to join you or other members to join. So just check with your program leader to make sure that this would be something that would be qualifying, and then make sure it's advertised, and then all of your club members that attend reach their requirement, and then you can facilitate that for others as well. And then sometimes if you're trying to think of a way that you can facilitate an activity, I can help with that too. I really like trying to figure out ways that we can make an experiential hands-on opportunity for our youth. So if there's an idea that you have floating around and you're just not sure how to get it implemented, I would love to talk to you about that, because those are fun things to do. All right, Ashley's turn.
All right, awesome. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick update about our strategic planning process that we're right in the middle of. We're going to talk a little bit about event contracts, youth accommodations, and an enrollment update, a really brief one. And then we're going to close out the session talking about youth leadership. So before we start that, we have this fantastic quote that we found from President John F. Kennedy that we're going to share with you. Through your emphasis on head, heart, hands, and health, you are making a valuable contribution to our country's welfare and progress. So we thought this was a really great way to show that, one, you as volunteers are making a huge contribution to your community, to the youth that you're leading, to their families, and as this quote shows our country's welfare and progress. So again, thank you for all that you do, for all that you're continuing to do, for joining us for this awesome online presentation. That's thrilling. So just being great. All right, strategic planning. So this is a process that we've been working on since I started, and it's a multi-stage process. In stage one, we kind of start to collect information. We start to draw a picture of the county, of the program, of the youth and the families, and we do that a few different ways. Our annual survey, which has completed or is concluded for this year. So if you did not participate in the survey, don't worry, you'll get a chance to do it again next year. We also pulled data from program reviews that Kim has been doing with our program leaders. We did have one focus group with adults where we asked some really great questions and got some amazing information from them. And we're continuing to do those focus groups. We have some youth focus groups in the works as well. So definitely keep an eye on your Clovergram or your emails for future dates for those. So after we collect all this information, and we also grab data from like the census and from other plans and evaluations and things from outside organizations, we take all that information and we set goals with it. We use that data, that information to kind of identify the areas where we need to maybe put some programs in place for improvement, some areas that our volunteers or youth have identified as areas they need more support in, and we set goals. We set those goals to try to improve our program. And then of course we evaluate everything. The next stage, and this hopefully will be done, you should see this in March, we're going to publish a document that has this needs assessment, and it has a plan with goals and objectives that we want to use to guide our program here for the next few years. So we plan on writing and publishing that in February, and we'll really start advertising it hopefully in March. So look for that. If you don't see it or you can't find it or your emails are going to spam, you can always shoot any of us an email, give us a call, and we'll make sure you get a copy of that. Okay, event contracts. This is a very important topic. We've had a lot of conversations with WSU about things, about events contracts. So we wanted to update all of our volunteers. Volunteers, when it comes to contracts, are not able to sign as a representative of WSU. I'm not able to, Kim's not able to, Beth's not able to, nobody in our office is. This has to go up through the WSU chain. So it requires a signature from a WSU representative that's allowed to sign these contracts. So the most common scenario when it comes to an event contract is something with the Evergreen State Fairgrounds. If you have a club or a program that's meeting at the fairground and you try to book the space, the fairground will initiate a contract process with you. You have to sign, I'm the club leader and yes, I want to use this. And then that contract then comes to our office, which goes up through the WSU chain. That takes a lot of time. The WSU contracts office requests 90 days, but they did give us a 60-day deadline as far as submitting these 4-H contracts specifically. So that means it has to be to WSU 60 days before the event to make sure that it gets through the process. That means it has to come to us. We want to give us a few days to process it, correct any errors if there are any. So 65 days prior to your event, we need some sort of contract. We need the contract between the venue and WSU submitted so we can get it all taken care of. We're going to be a little more proactive in helping with this, especially when it comes to those clubs and meetings that happen regularly at the fairgrounds. So expect an email if you're a program leader or a club leader that uses the fairgrounds on a regular basis. You can expect an email from us sometime in July saying, hey, the 4-H year is getting ready to end. It's time to start a new contract with the fairgrounds to make sure all of your meetings are covered. So we're going to start working on that. WSU has made it very clear that no contract with a venue means that no event can take place. So if you are planning an event and the venue requests some sort of signed contract, you need to contact us as soon as possible and we will help you through that process. Any questions you have, whether it be about a contract that's already in process or whether or not a contract is actually a contract or it's actually needed, you can let us know. A common confusion with contracts, sometimes a venue does not require a contract that needs to be signed, but they do want some sort of proof of liability insurance. We can actually provide that much quicker than the 60-day notice. If you're a registered volunteer, you have 4-H youth that are enrolled in 4-H online, they're already covered by WSU and 4-H insurance. So give us a call if a venue that you're trying to book an event with is asking for some sort of insurance liability, and we can help you with that. And there's a lot of questions around insurance we didn't want to get into here that we can definitely help you with as well, special events and things like that. So again, just give us a call, any questions about contracts, and we can hopefully help you out with that. All right, 4-H online enrollment update. I want to just give a quick update, although these numbers are probably low since I pulled them before the very first volunteer update. As of now, about 800, almost 900 youth. That's about 72% of last year's enrollment. So that's a pretty good number. Again, I think that's probably higher. About 76% of last year's active adults. For program leaders and for club leaders and project leaders, we want to make sure your youth are actually enrolled before you're participating in activities and events. This is incredibly important for accident insurance, liability insurance. A youth has to be actively enrolled in 4-H online before they're covered by that insurance. So if you're an equine program and you have a ride night, your robotics program and you have a robot competition, shooting sports, and you have some sort of match or practice at the range, it's really important that all the youth that are enrolled, that are going to be participating in that event, are enrolled in 4-H online. If you don't know how to check that, if you're struggling with checking that, for some reason you can't find it, again, contact Chrissy, our admin assistant, any of us, and we can help you with that. All right, another enrollment update here. Volunteer background checks, we do these every single year. We don't do all volunteers every year, we split it up. So this year, any volunteer with a last name that starts with the letters L through Z is required to get a background check unless they've already been background checked in the last 12 months. So please check your status in 4-H online. This background check process was automatically initiated if your last name falls in that category, but the email may have gone to spam. So if you look in 4-H online and for some reason it shows you as like not participating, not an active volunteer, this might be the reason. So check your email for a background check request, email or call Christy, and she can resend that email if you need it. And again, any questions, please let us know. Another background check update here, non-certified adults who are going to be attending any events and staying in a dorm or anything like that need to be background checked. Now this is different than a chaperone in that chaperones for 4-H are required to be certified volunteers. But sometimes if you have an out-of-state event or if you have an event where you're going to be staying overnight for a camping thing or something like that, and an adult family member wants to attend, wants to watch the event, wants to go to some of the educational opportunities with their youth, that's great. But because there's that potential of a one-on-one, or not one-on-one, sorry, but the potential that that adult might act as, a supervisor of something, they might accidentally wind up supervising, let's say the volunteer has to turn around and make a quick phone call. We ask that non-certified adult be background checked. They're required to be background checked. The difference is they have to pay for that out of pocket. So so they can give us a call. You guys can give us a call if you have a question about that. Any question about whether or not an adult has to be background checked, we will definitely answer those. If you have an event that you're going overnight, of course, we're already going to be aware because you're going to let us know ahead of time that you're going, and we can ask that question and definitely figure that kind of stuff out. So again, if you have a non-certified volunteer adult that's going to be in a facility, in a dorm, anything like that, we want them background checked and we can help you with that, and they have to pay for it out of pocket. Now, the $14 background check fee can be avoided if you want to help get that adult certified as a volunteer, and we can definitely help you with that. Contact Beth if you have that question. Okay, accommodations. I think coming to Snohomish County I was already like immediately impressed by how accommodating the volunteers are here for youth. So that's something that, one, I want to say thank you for being so great with the youth in all these events, making sure that everyone can participate. So you're doing a really great job. But I did want to touch on specifically requests for reasonable accommodations. If a youth has a request for an accommodation, like, oh, they need a little extra time for an event to get prepared, maybe they need a helper at an event because of, anxiety, maybe they need, just something kind of simple, easy that the volunteer can easily accommodate, by all means, go ahead and do that. However, if there is an accommodation request that may require equipment, may require we hire an interpreter or something like that that costs money, the state, WSU, has some resources for that. So there is a process for that, and we can hopefully get state support to pay for those kinds of accommodations. So we have a request for a reasonable accommodation form. It's pretty simple to initiate, to start. After that process is started, either by the volunteer or the parent, the 4-H staff, more than likely me, will meet with parents and guardians, talk to experts if they're necessary, get the required documentation, and submit it to the state for funding. So that form can be found, here's the county website, so and can be found under resources. And under for members, you see a request for reasonable accommodation. All right, we are going to talk now. We're going to move into the educational component of our presentation, where we're going to talk a little bit about youth leadership and what that looks like. A couple of quotes really quick. In 2016, the 4-H National Youth Survey on Leadership, 2/3 of respondents said they don't have the tangible skills they need to lead. Half of high school students said they don't feel prepared to lead in college or a future career. So this is the president and CEO of our National 4-H Council. And this is a really important quote because it shows that our youth, not just our youth, but all youth, and at least in the survey population, they didn't have those tangible skills that they need to move forward in life, especially after high school, going on into college and into their future careers. So I think that's somewhere that you as volunteers and as mentors for these youth, and we as faculty and staff here at the 4-H can hopefully address. So leadership, what does that look like? Some kind of obvious tips and things like that. Youth will one day be adults, despite our best efforts. They are going to grow and mature into adults that are going to be asked to lead in multiple areas of their life, whether it be the private sector or in academia as graduate assistants or club leaders in the academic world, public and nonprofit organizations. Some of our youth will go directly into the military. Will there be squad leaders? They might be officers, definitely in civil service positions. But even if in none of the above, they're going to be leaders in their own families, as mothers, as fathers, as aunts, as uncles, as mentors in their community. Leadership skills and opportunities that we provide here in the 4-H, but also, that they're getting elsewhere, they're really beneficial to the youth themselves. Those leadership skills help improve coping skills and mental health and well-being of our youth. They help increase the successful transition into adulthood, which we know is a very, very tumultuous, very stressful time for our youth. They increase educational attainment, and they lower dropout rates for high school. But they also improve those essential life skills such as negotiation, communication, advocacy, whether it be for themselves or for others, and their resiliency, how they respond to stress and negative life experiences. So how do we do youth leadership? Well, the 4-H has that traditional club model. It's the most common way that you see youth engaging in leadership opportunities. And it's where youth officers are elected, bylaws and things guide that process, and officers such as vice president, treasurer, secretary, sergeant at arms, things like that are regular occurrences. And that's applicable in many, many ways. Definitely in chartered clubs, the traditional club model is incredibly important. In programs or councils that meet on a regular basis. You might have special committees or advisory committees that meet regularly for specific tasks where you might have officers elected. And then projects that meet regularly or spend money. So yes, this should be the case for those projects that meet on a regular basis, that do fundraisers, that spend money, that have bank accounts. That's another area that definitely youth leaders should be tapped to help run those activities. But there are sometimes scenarios where that traditional club model does not work very well. So what are those alternatives? Well, maybe a project that doesn't do anything with money. Maybe a project that only meets for a very single purpose outside of their larger club isn't going to want to elect officers and have bylaws and do things like that. So if I'm only meeting with a project for 6 weeks to learn how to sew a specific pattern, probably not the most appropriate time to have those kinds of elected permanent positions. Projects without capacity to elect officers. If you have a project that youth are moving in and out of on a frequent basis, the capacity just isn't there to hold elections. Ad hoc committees, or these special committees that meet for a short purpose for one particular reason and then disband afterwards, probably not, again, the most appropriate. But there are alternatives to the traditional club model. So if you have one of those scenarios where the club model just doesn't fit, you can still provide opportunities for youth to lead. For example, if you have a committee that meets once a month and they're doing some particular activity, maybe have a facilitator, a youth facilitator, and maybe rotate that every month. So this month, Sally's going to do it. Next month, Hector's going to do it. You might have project-specific leadership opportunities, such as fundraising specialists or maybe community engagement specialists. And then if you do have a task that needs to be done, instead of, either in the club model, maybe you don't have time, instead of just kind of doing it, maybe think about forming a special committee of youth that can work on that. So we have a quick example of something like that, and I'm just going to read this to you. Your club is in the middle of a big change. You have outgrown your current meeting space and need to find a new location and facilitate moving the club. Your inclination is to reach out to local business leaders yourself and find at least 2 suitable options to present to the club. However, you decide this might be a great opportunity to teach critical thinking, problem solving, delegation, and community collaboration skills to your club members. You decide to ask the youth if they would be interested in having a special committee to research a new location. Several youth are interested, and you facilitate separate meetings in which committee chair, secretary, and community coordinator are elected. Members of the youth committee research locations, speak to local businesses and professionals, and through their efforts and connections create a list of 4 suitable meeting locations. The youth present their findings to the club, and the club decides on a location. The committee is charged with facilitating the move, and your club has a new home. So this is a really great example of, here's a task that needs to be performed. So instead of kind of performing it in the background outside of the club environment, when you have more time, maybe we can get the youth engaged in that activity. And what's really great about this is it teaches them skills. It teaches them skills on committee structures and working outside of the club environment, bringing that information back into the larger club. That's also delegation. We're not doing it just the same officers doing the work all the time. We're delegating to other members of the club. Note-taking skills, fundraising, event planning. These are all skills that can come from these types of opportunities. But the experiential education is really, really awesome here, because the youth are taking these skills that they learned and now they're solving a real life problem. This is a real problem affecting their club, and they're able to solve it. And they're making those community connections that benefit future activities. All those calls they made and all the support they got to find a new location, those connections aren't just going to disappear after they get a new location. They could benefit future club activities, but also future activities outside of 4-H, or in a new 4-H club, or with a new 4-H event, or anything like that. Those connections don't disappear. They're something that the youth are able to develop and then hopefully strengthen over time. So some tips about youth leadership: definitely be creative. There's definitely no one-size-fits-all model here. We ask that we try to ensure that any environment, whether it be traditional club, a special committee, an event, is inclusive. use templates and forms to suit all abilities. So if you're trying to engage new youth that maybe haven't been in a leadership experience before, make sure that the activities that you're giving them, they suit their abilities. So if we have a new note taker, maybe a template would make that a little easier. Adjust the delivery of materials to suit all abilities. So don't always assume that everyone can type or handwrite, for example, or read the minutes very quickly in a meeting environment. Maybe we need to read them out loud for certain youth. And use multiple methods of participation if at all possible. We definitely don't want to isolate those youth that don't have access to the internet, aren't allowed or don't have access to Facebook. If that's our only method of communication, we're going to be leaving those youth out. And we can definitely chat one-on-one if you're interested about making sure that environments are inclusive for all socioeconomic backgrounds and cultures and, things like that. Definitely just give me a call, shoot me an email, and I will go into depth with that. All right, so that concludes the very brief educational component of our presentation. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope that the information you got from this presentation as a whole has been helpful for you. Of course, if anything was confusing or if you have any questions at all, feel free to email any of us. There is a quick survey. If you're doing this online, you weren't in person, you weren't able to sign in, a really quick, very, very brief, just your name and a little comment box survey down below this video. Please fill that out so you can be recorded as attending. And thank you for everything you do. I have to say again, and I will say it over and over again, the work you're doing with our youth in our community and our families, it's making a huge difference. It's going to continue to make a difference. And it's all because of how awesome and wonderful and dedicated you all are. So thank you so very much.